Hello and welcome to TransByDef. My name is Morgan Fay and this week's topic is transgender persons in sports. So this is actually a topic I had to educate myself a bit on because I didn't know a lot about it, and I wasn't quite certain that I wanted to, follow the party line and say, of course, trans persons, they need to compete in the groups that they identify with because that's fair. But I wasn't sure if it was. So I did look into a lot of the medical documentation coming out to make sure that my opinion is going to match with what is scientifically evident at the time. And when we're talking about transgender persons in sports, we're really talking about trans women. You don't really hear that much in the way of complaints about trans men competing in any sports because no one's looking at them as having an advantage, even though they are actually taking anabolic steroids. But I don't know anything about that, and I really haven't come across any kind of documentation or anything online or anything that's has empirical evidence of what it is to be a trans man in men's divisions, so I wouldn't be able to comment. Now, for trans women who are competing in sports, we're looking at two different groupings. We've got one who are competing in schools, competing in colleges, but pretty much for it's non-professional. And then we've got professional sports, or where there's prizes or awards being offered. And there we have two different outlooks. In the first one, since this is pretty much if we're talking about a high school sport team or something like that, we really want to talk about people learning, participating, enjoying their life. So there should be the ability for trans persons to be able to compete in the groups that they identify with. Now, once we get into the professional league, then it becomes a little more concerning because you have to make sure that a fairness is reached for other female competitors, and the thought that a trans woman would have an advantage over cisgender natal women is something that comes directly to mind. It did come to mind, and that's why I wanted to look into it. And it's all about the testosterone. It's about the muscle mass. It's about physiological advantages that a trans woman might have. And the empirical evidence and the medical data coming out is pretty much consistent that after a couple years, a year to 2 years on anti-androgens, testosterone blockers like spironolactone, or the advantages that a trans woman might have had are pretty much dissipated. They're competing at similar muscle masses. They're competing with similar bone masses. So there really is no advantage. Now, you have to make sure that this can't be taken advantage of. When millions of dollars are offered as prizes, then you have to consider that some people might see this as a way to get around the system. I would like to think that no one out there would do that, but people are human, and humans can sometimes be very greedy and very deceptive. So I think the best way to test, and it's kind of something that's done in the IOC, for the Olympics as well as for the NBA, the women's NBA. These are basically testosterone levels. While the Olympics requires sex change, that's not something that should be necessary. It's not a penis that gives someone advantage, it's the testosterone. So I think after about a year of having serum test levels of your testosterone that show that you are at or below that of a natal female, then there really should be no question as to any kind of advantage you might have due to your past physiology. So that's going to be my stance on it, is that if it's professional, then testing probably is required, and I would think that someone needs to be on some sort of anti-androgen for some time, and that their testosterone levels need to be at or below that of a natal woman for at least a year, and show that to be consistent, so that there's no there's no way to take advantage of any kind of loopholes that might exist that some unscrupulous people might decide to do, which will in the future make it harder for trans women who legitimately want to compete. I don't think that serum testing of testosterone for a year is that big of a task to ask for professional athletes, and just as they test to make sure that there's no use of anabolic steroids, this testing is basically checking for the same thing. It's just how is it being produced. Now, if someone's had a sex change, or if someone's had orchirectomy or something along those lines, then there is no testosterone production, and you're pretty much just testing for anabolic steroids, just like anyone else would be tested. So that's my stance on it. That's after, like I said, looking at the empirical evidence. What has already taken place with some of the well-known athletes that are out there, Fallon Fox, several people in the women's basketball league, and also looking at the medical data coming out of it. And it pretty much is consistent, saying after about a year to 2 years of being on anti-androgens, we don't have an advantage. And to that I can agree. Before I started transition, I was up there. I was about 230 pounds, and I could easily bench press 1.5 times my weight. I was fairly strong. I was kind of an intimidating person, and now I usually have to ask my wife to open pickle jars, and carrying in a 5-gallon container for our water dispenser. It stresses me a bit. By the time I get it into the house, I'm breathing heavily. So whatever strength I had, I've lost well over half of it. I'm probably maybe a third to 40% as strong as I used to be. And now, if I were to have began working out and really, try to, keep that muscle mass, which obviously is not something I wanted to do, I could have maintained it all, and I could have been a very strong woman. But if I would have had that same commitment as a man, I would have reached a level that I could never reach now. And that's pretty much what it boils down to. Now that I am on HRT, specifically, spironolactone, there is no way I could reach a muscle mass that I had previously. It's just not possible. I would have to work heavily and often in order just to get to where I was. And I've been on spironolactone for about 15, 16 months now. So it doesn't take that long. And I noticed the loss in strength fairly rapidly. After about 6 months on spironolactone, where the situation that really hit me, how not strong I was anymore, I went down to see my family in Miami, and went to a movie with my mother. And my mother has some issues with her knees getting up and down. And when we were in the movie theater afterwards, she was having trouble standing up. This shouldn't have been an issue. It's never been an issue before. I would have got a hold of her hands, pulled her up real quick, and we've been on our way. And that's what was in my head. I thought, yeah, no problem, I could do that. I'm strong and I've got all this muscle mass. Well, that's the body image I still maintained. I still unfortunately think that I'm a lot bigger person than I actually am anymore. So I took a hold of her hands. I was like, yeah, no problem, let me pull you up. So I pull, and then I wind up almost falling on top of her because I just didn't have it anymore. I had to sit back and think of, okay, I've got to work I've got to work leverage into it now. I've got to and what was something that would have been super simple was something that was not anymore. So yeah, muscle mass goes away, and if you're trans, you really don't regret it. It definitely makes a big difference in your appearance. Now, the one thing I would like to get into at the end of this is this issue as far as transitioning and athletes and everything is only because transitioning itself is in a transition state. The way, with what we want to accomplish as a community to be accepted and to make sure that things are easier for the generations after us, is that there won't be this kind of question of any kind of unfair advantage, because hopefully no trans child will ever have to go through transition as we have. You know, they'll be able to go through puberty as that gender, wherever it might fall on the spectrum that they identify with, and there will never be a chance to develop any kind of, you know, unfair physical advantage, you know, where it might be considered in sports. So this is a problem that's only temporary, and what we're looking forward to in the future is, as a community, that you know, transitioning itself will be different, and that a lot of the concerns that we have now, a lot of the acceptance we have to fight for, is something that hopefully generations of beyond, you know, ahead of us are never going to have to deal with. So that's it for this segment on TransByDef. I'm Morgan Fay, and I hope to see you next week.